A bombshell leak suggests Ferrari are deliberately holding back Lewis Hamilton. Frederic Vasseur has reportedly ordered all upgrades to go only on Charles Leclerc's car, leaving Hamilton stuck with outdated parts to make him look weaker and easier to push out. Stay with me until the end, because this scandal changes everything. Subscribe to stay informed about the latest Formula One news. What had for weeks circulated as little more than whispered rumor has now detonated into the open with the force of a scandal capable of shaking the foundations of Formula One. A series of leaks have exposed claims so explosive, so corrosive, that they strike at the very heart of Ferrari's reputation. According to these revelations, Lewis Hamilton, the seven-time world champion brought into Maranello with dreams of restoring their glory, has allegedly been the victim of internal sabotage carried out from within his own garage. The suggestion is that this was not a matter of misfortune, not an accumulation of honest errors, but a deliberate campaign orchestrated to undermine him, reduce his competitiveness, and create the conditions for Ferrari to break away from his contract without shouldering the massive financial burden attached to it. The accusations are as detailed as they are disturbing. Multiple voices from inside the Scuderia whisper that instructions have been coming from the very top, from team principal Frederic Vasseur himself. These insiders allege that in private meetings with senior engineers and technical directors, he has insisted that every strategic and developmental choice must tilt toward Charles Leclerc. It is claimed that Leclerc's garage consistently receives the newest upgrades first, enjoys the most polished components, and is supported with the bulk of Ferrari's resources, while Hamilton's side of the operation is left behind, provided with older versions of parts, or at times denied upgrades entirely. Publicly, the line repeated to the media has been rehearsed with care: "We are focusing on the driver who has been with us longer and understands our car best." But beneath the surface, according to those who have witnessed it firsthand, the objective is more sinister: starve Hamilton of performance, isolate him psychologically, frustrate him until his results collapse, and then point to those failures as justification for ripping up his deal. What makes the allegations all the more chilling is the consistency with which patterns have emerged across the season. Hamilton's machinery, insiders claim, has repeatedly suffered from curious reliability issues that always seem to strike in decisive moments. Sessions begin with a setup that feels competitive, only for inexplicable changes to appear by the next outing, leaving him struggling with balance problems or tire where he cannot explain. Radio calls from his pit wall have often sounded hesitant, indecisive, or even contradictory, with strategy choices that appear almost designed to place him in traffic or compromise his race rather than maximize his chances. Meanwhile, across the garage, Leclerc's afternoons unfold with cleaner stops, fresher components, and seemingly sharper execution. Hamilton himself has grown increasingly restless. Though he has not openly accused his team, his body language has betrayed frustration. Post-race interviews have been clipped, his eyes cold, his tone sharp. On the radio, flashes of irritation have broken through as he questions decisions, only to be met with vague reassurances. Those closest to him suggest that he has long harbored suspicions but lacked the proof to confront Ferrari directly. Now, with leaks pouring out into the media, those suspicions seem to carry weight, and the silence he has kept is interpreted by many as the fury of a man who knows he is being cornered from within. The Ferrari fanbase, the Tifosi, are torn in half. Subscribe to stay informed about the latest Formula One news. Some refuse to accept the possibility that their beloved team could engage in such deception. For them, Ferrari is an institution built on pride, and the notion of sabotaging one of their own drivers is unthinkable. Others, however, recalling years of questionable strategies, political infighting and mismanagement, find the allegations disturbingly believable. The atmosphere among the faithful is one of disbelief, denial, anger and confusion, with debates raging over whether Ferrari's leadership has crossed a line that dishonors the very spirit of competition. The impact across the paddock is equally seismic. Rival teams, though silent in public, are reportedly enraged behind the scenes. Figures in Mercedes, where Hamilton built his dynasty, are said to feel vindicated, believing that Ferrari has proven incapable of adapting to his standards. At Red Bull, insiders are monitoring closely, aware that Hamilton's discontent could open the door to an extraordinary reshuffling of the driver market. Even midfield outfits are said to be calculating whether a disgruntled Hamilton might entertain their approaches, though the financial realities make such scenarios unlikely. For Ferrari, the potential fallout is catastrophic. If these claims are ever substantiated with concrete evidence, the damage to their reputation would be irreparable. A team that has for decades embodied history, passion, and tradition would find itself tainted by allegations of betrayal and manipulation. Sponsors would demand accountability, governing bodies would be forced to investigate, and the credibility of the Scuderia as a sporting institution could be shattered. For Hamilton, the consequences are equally monumental. He has found himself not simply in a competitive struggle, but in what looks increasingly like a political war for survival inside the team. Already, speculation swirls that his management are examining exit options. Whether that means negotiating a release to rejoin Mercedes, exploring the unlikely but tantalizing possibility of aligning with Red Bull, or even striking out with Aston Martin, where his voice might carry the authority Ferrari has denied him. What was supposed to be the crowning chapter of his career, a final quest for glory in the colors of Ferrari, now risks being remembered as one of Formula One's darkest betrayals. The story has transformed from a narrative of destiny into a cautionary tale of mistrust, sabotage, and political gamesmanship. If the leaks are even partially accurate, then Hamilton's time at Ferrari will not be remembered for triumph but for treachery, not for glory but for grievance. And so, Formula One waits, stunned, restless, and captivated, watching to see whether more proof emerges, whether Hamilton himself will break his silence, and whether Ferrari can withstand the firestorm that has engulfed them. The truth, whatever it proves to be, has already rewritten the story of this season, and perhaps of the sport itself. The rumors emerging from inside Ferrari have rattled even the most seasoned followers of Formula One, people who thought they had already seen every form of political maneuvering in the sport. The scale of the alleged favoritism has left many stunned. Whispers suggest that every significant update, new wing profiles, revised suspension geometry, subtle refinements in the power unit, are installed exclusively on Charles Leclerc's car. Hamilton, meanwhile, is left circulating with outdated specifications, told repeatedly that introducing upgrades on both machines simultaneously would be too risky. To some, it sounded like a convenient excuse. To Hamilton, it was the clearest possible signal that something was being withheld. Those who have worked closest to him say his doubts have been growing with each passing race. He notices details others might overlook. The unexplained gap in straight-line speed when his setup should theoretically match Leclerc's. The way his tires fall off a cliff earlier than expected despite running identical strategies. Electronic hitches that surface at critical moments in qualifying. Glitches Ferrari insists are coincidental, but always seem to appear at the exact point when Hamilton is poised to deliver a decisive lap. Engineers who dared to question the pattern were met with reminders from Frederic Vasseur. Charles has been part of this project for years. He has earned our trust. Hamilton, by contrast, was told to dig deeper, to extract more from what he already had, as though sheer willpower could compensate for a lack of upgrades. The pressure finally erupted in a dramatic clash after the Hungarian Grand Prix. The debrief, according to those present, was unlike anything they had ever witnessed. The room had barely settled when Hamilton slammed his tablet onto the table, the crack of plastic against would snapping everyone to silence. His frustration spilled over in words that brooked no misunderstanding. "You can't expect me to keep believing this is random, Fred," he snapped, his tone sharp enough to make the younger engineers flinch. "I can see what's happening here. You're loading Charles with everything and leaving me with leftovers. I didn't come here to be a supporting act. I came here to win." The outburst hung heavy in the air, but Vasseur, red-faced and visibly angered, struck back. His reply was as much about defending his own authority as it was about protecting Leclerc. "Lewis," he shot back, voice cold and hard, "you joined Ferrari to be part of the team, not to dictate how we run it. You think that after half a season you can come in and change the way resources are distributed? Charles is our investment, our future, the driver we are building everything around. You are not bigger than Ferrari." The silence that followed was suffocating. Engineers looked at one another, but said nothing. The confrontation had crossed a line that could not be erased. Hamilton, eyes narrowed, didn't respond immediately. Instead he stood, gathered his things without ceremony, and walked out. He didn't offer a handshake, didn't soften his words. As he left, he muttered, loud enough for several in the room to hear, "This is exactly why this team hasn't lifted a championship in nearly 20 years." That single sentence reverberated like an earthquake inside Maranello. It wasn't just anger, it was an indictment, a public declaration that Ferrari's culture of hierarchy and favoritism was its own undoing. For Hamilton, it was the moment his suspicions turned into open war. For Vasseur, it was the moment his authority was directly challenged in front of his staff. And for Leclerc, It was confirmation that the fragile balance inside the garage had been shattered beyond repair. From that day, the illusion of harmony no longer existed. What was supposed to be Ferrari's great revival had transformed into a civil war between its two star drivers and a principal determined to cling to control. Every mechanic, every strategist, every engineer could feel the fracture deepening. For the rest of the grid, it was another reminder that Ferrari's greatest enemy has never been its rivals. It has always been itself. The atmosphere inside Ferrari has descended into something close to open hostility, and those who once described the tension between Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc as competitive rivalry now call it a Cold War. The confrontation that unfolded in the team's motorhome was the moment everything spilled into the open. Hamilton, tired of whispering suspicions, confronted his teammate face to face. His voice was sharp, his words direct. He accused Leclerc of knowingly enjoying advantages he had been denied, of racing with updates that he was forbidden from even testing. It was not a complaint. It was an accusation delivered with the raw intensity of a champion who felt betrayed from within. Leclerc, usually the picture of composure, did not remain silent. He fired back with a bluntness that shocked those present. He reminded Hamilton that he had endured years of carrying the Scuderia through endless failures, political storms, and unbearable expectations, and he insisted that if Ferrari's faith now rested on him, it was the reward he had earned through loyalty and resilience. He told Hamilton without hesitation that he would not apologize for being the one the team chose to back. "If you cannot succeed with what you've been given, that is not my burden," he snapped. The exchange cut deep, and from that moment the atmosphere turned glacial. Neither driver has spoken directly since. In the garage, they pass without eye contact, their body language rigid, while mechanics and engineers scramble to keep them separated, terrified that the animosity could erupt into a public spectacle that would drag Ferrari into chaos. For Hamilton, the clash confirmed what he already suspected, that his role at Ferrari had never been equal, that promises of fair treatment were illusions. The betrayal crystallized an idea that had been tempting him for months, abandoning the Red Project and returning to the team that made him a legend. What had once been a lingering thought became a concrete possibility. The frustration that boiled over with Leclerc was the final push, and within days he sought the counsel of the man who knew him best. Under cover of night in Monaco, Hamilton slipped unnoticed into a discreet hotel where Toto Wolff was staying. The secrecy was deliberate, designed to avoid cameras and speculation, but the whispers began anyway. Behind closed doors, the two spent hours talking, their discussion stretching long into the night with the harbor lights flickering outside the window. Their bond, forged during years of unparalleled success at Mercedes, had never been broken despite Hamilton's move to Ferrari. Now in that private room, it resurfaced with urgency. Wolff, pragmatic and direct, wasted no time. He told Hamilton that Ferrari would never treat him as an equal, that his status there was compromised beyond repair. He offered him a choice: finish his career struggling inside a political machine that no longer valued him, or come home to the team that had defined his greatness. "Mercedes built your legacy," Wolff reportedly said, his words sharp and deliberate. "And Mercedes will open the door if you want to reclaim it." Those words lingered in Hamilton's mind. They pulled at memories of dominance, of standing on podiums draped in silver and black, of titles secured with ruthless efficiency. They reminded him of what had been stripped away, the security of a team built around him, the confidence of machinery designed to match his brilliance, the pride of belonging somewhere that understood his worth. Compared with the fractured environment at Ferrari, the temptation was overwhelming. The implications of such a move are staggering. Russell, carefully groomed as the future face of Mercedes, would be forced to share the spotlight again with a superstar whose presence commands attention across the globe. Antonelli, the prodigy many see as inevitable, might see his path delayed or reshaped, his destiny postponed by the return of a giant who refuses to step aside. And Ferrari, having severed ties in such a cold and calculated fashion, could find themselves haunted by regret if Hamilton were to climb back onto the top step of the podium wearing silver once again. Inside the paddock, speculation has reached fever pitch. Every whispered detail, every supposed sighting, every rumor is seized upon and dissected. Fans argue endlessly about what should happen, some insisting Hamilton deserves one last chapter of glory, others saying the sport must move forward. Journalists chase leads, insiders leak fragments, and rival teams watch closely, knowing that if Hamilton were to reunite with Mercedes, it could shift the balance of power across the entire grid. This saga has transcended racing. It has become theater, politics, and raw emotion blended into one narrative that grips the world. The image of Hamilton, rejected by Ferrari and walking away from Maranello in silence, only to be seen hours later deep in conversation with Wolff in Monaco, feels almost like a cinematic script unfolding in reality. Whether it leads to a triumphant return or fizzles into rumor, the story has already altered the perception of the season and perhaps the legacy of Hamilton himself. What once seemed impossible is now within reach. His decision, whether to stay and endure the bitterness of Ferrari or to return to the team that built his dynasty, will echo through the sport for years. Until he makes that choice, Formula One remains on edge, captivated by a drama that combines betrayal, ambition, and the hunger for redemption into one of the most compelling sagas the sport has ever witnessed. Hamilton's dissatisfaction inside Ferrari has become the subject of relentless gossip, and sources close to the situation claim the tension finally boiled over in a private conversation with Toto Wolff. The seven-time champion, usually guarded with his emotions, allegedly let down his walls in that moment, his frustration spilling out in raw, unfiltered words. He is said to have confessed that life within Maranello had become intolerable, describing how he felt undermined in front of his own engineers, claiming essential parts were being stripped from his car, and accusing key figures of deliberately eroding his confidence. In what insiders portray as a rare glimpse of vulnerability, Hamilton reportedly told Wolff, "They're tearing me apart from within. They're taking pieces away, humiliating me in front of the garage, trying to crush me. I can't remain in a place that won't defend me. I need an escape." Wolff, known for his ability to read people as sharply as he reads contracts, is believed to have responded with calm conviction. He allegedly leaned forward, voice steady but low, as though speaking not just as a boss but as an ally. "Then let's create the way out," he supposedly said. "We can bring you back for 20 million annually. It won't be the fortune Ferrari promised, but it will be transparent, it will be fair, and above all, it will be authentic. You'll sit in a car you can believe in, surrounded by people who won't betray you, within a project built around 2026. That way, you decide the ending, not them." Accounts of the meeting suggest Wolff then produced a preliminary agreement, sliding it across the table with quiet emphasis. This draft was not simply a salary outline but a carefully built framework designed to honor Hamilton's legacy. The proposed two-year deal reportedly included not only competitive pay but also long-term roles as a brand figurehead, ensuring his influence and presence would remain part of Mercedes even after he hung up his helmet. The figure, $20 million a season, may not rival the colossal paycheck Ferrari dangled, yet the message was unmistakable. Mercedes was serious, committed, and ready to rebuild a partnership that once defined an era. The plan would reunite Hamilton with George Russell, creating a lineup that balanced wisdom and ambition. Russell, sharp and hungry, would continue to grow into his future as Mercedes' standard-bearer, while Hamilton would provide not just speed but guidance, acting as the bridge between the team's decorated past and its awaited future. In this vision, Hamilton would once again fight for victories, while Antonelli and Russell prepared to carry the torch into the next generation. Observers close to the discussion insist Hamilton's reaction was immediate, his eyes lighting with something not seen in months. Those present claim the emotion in the room was tangible as he whispered words that summed up the moment, "This feels like home again." It was less a business transaction than a homecoming, the rebirth of trust after a year of bitterness. The consequences of such a move would ripple through every layer of the sport. Ferrari, already battered by criticism, would face an even harsher backlash. Supporters who pinned their hopes on Hamilton leading them into a new golden age would feel deceived, their faith shattered. Sponsors who spent fortunes marketing his arrival in red would be left scrambling, furious at a collapse that rendered campaigns worthless. Social networks, already ablaze with discontent, would likely turn into a tidal wave of anger and disappointment directed squarely at Ferrari's leadership. Mercedes, in stark contrast, would regain both authority and identity. The return of the man who helped them carve one of the greatest dynasties in Formula One would not just boost morale, it would remind everyone in the paddock that Mercedes is not fading, but evolving. For the staff in Brackley, Hamilton's reappearance would be a call to arms, a reminder of their dominance and a challenge to recreate it. For fans, it would be a powerful story of resilience and redemption. And for Hamilton himself, it would be liberation, the ability to reclaim his story, to choose the timing and manner of his departure, and to ensure he walks away remembered as the architect of his destiny rather than the victim of another team's politics. If the whispers are accurate, this potential reunion will be remembered as one of the sport's most extraordinary twists. A champion who risked everything on Ferrari's dream only to be broken by its machinery and politics, now returning to the team that knows him best, not to relive the past but to close his journey with authority. It would be a defiant gesture, a reminder that in Formula One, legacy is never left to chance. It is taken back, rewritten, and sealed in moments of decision that echo far beyond the racetrack. Ferrari now finds itself drowning in the fallout of a controversy that has spiraled into one of the most destabilizing moments in its modern history. The whispers about sabotage, once dismissed as gossip, have erupted into an inferno of suspicion that the team cannot silence. Officially, their line remains carefully rehearsed. Resource allocation has been strategically managed, every decision aimed at maximizing performance across the season. But those words land with no conviction. To the public, they sound like excuses, fragile shields against a storm of outrage. Fans are unconvinced, rivals are skeptical, and the narrative has slipped completely out of Ferrari's control. Online, the fury grows louder by the hour. What began as murmurs has turned into a global outcry. Timelines are flooded with accusations of manipulation and betrayal. Entire threads dissect telemetry, strategy calls, and suspicious pit stop choices. Hashtags like #SabotageGate and #JusticeForHamilton dominate feeds, trending worldwide with relentless intensity. Ferrari, a team once revered even by neutrals, is suddenly the villain of the sport. Memes mock them, opinion pieces condemn them, and even the faithful tifosi are split, some defending tradition, others admitting they feel betrayed by the team they worshipped. The erosion of trust is brutal and immediate. Adding weight to the backlash are the voices of veterans who have lived Ferrari's triumphs and collapses firsthand. Former drivers, usually cautious about criticizing Maranello, have begun to speak openly. Some stop short of direct accusations, but others go further, warning that if the allegations carry truth, Ferrari's honor has been permanently stained. A former champion stated bluntly that a victory built on betrayal is no victory at all, a phrase that has been repeated endlessly in headlines and broadcasts. For a brand that has always thrived on mystique, prestige, and loyalty, this perception of dishonor is catastrophic. At the center of the storm is Hamilton, and his silence is more powerful than any statement. Publicly, he maintains composure, smiling for the cameras, offering diplomatic answers, refusing to escalate the drama in words. But beneath that surface lies a man who has lived the evidence, who has watched inexplicable decisions strip him of chances, who has connected dots too obvious to ignore. A seven-time champion knows the difference between misfortune and betrayal, between errors and patterns. And though he has not exploded in anger, his calm demeanor feels less like acceptance and more like preparation, the stillness before a devastating strike. Behind the scenes, the intrigue deepens. Reports of Hamilton's conversations with Toto Wolff have ignited wild speculation. Insiders whisper about discreet meetings, private phone calls, and scenarios being drawn up that could engineer the most sensational reunion in Formula One history. The thought of Hamilton, discarded and undermined by Ferrari, returning to Mercedes to reclaim his legacy, has electrified fans and unsettled rivals. The symbolism is irresistible, a fallen champion, betrayed by the most famous team in the world, rising again with the squad that once carried him to glory. For Mercedes, it would be more than a signing, it would be a declaration, a dramatic reset of their ambitions. The supposed calm of the summer break has instead become a stage for the most explosive narrative the sport has seen in years. Instead of quiet analysis, the break is consumed by chaos, stories of backroom deals, allegations of sabotage, and the growing anticipation of a possible Hamilton comeback that could redefine the competitive order of the grid. Every passing day adds to the fever, every new leak intensifies the storm. The break has become less a pause and more a countdown. At the center of it all, Hamilton refuses to be crushed. He embodies defiance through control, dignity through restraint, resilience through silence. He knows the cameras are watching, that every word will be dissected, and he is careful to let the situation build around him. The narrative writes itself, the greatest driver of his era, betrayed by the sport's most iconic institution, preparing to rise once again. Whether he returns in silver, in another color, or simply as himself against the world, the stage is being set for a comeback so dramatic it would eclipse even his past triumphs. Formula One thrives on rivalries and shocks, but this saga has gone beyond sport. It has become a tale of betrayal, resistance, and redemption, one that could define Hamilton's legacy and reshape the future of racing forever.